In the 3 years we've been doing this show, Lee, we have never touched on addiction and human resources. And I think with the layering of the pandemic over everything, even though we're starting to come out, it's just almost taken that whole space and shot it on steroids like 1,000,000%.
Yeah, and if you've been a manager for any length of time, you will encounter an employee, a coworker, even a boss, if you will, that is challenged by this. So it's important to know how to deal with this. And we've got a great guest to help us talk about that today.
We sure do. Welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. I'm Audrey Strong. I'm the Vice President of Communications here at SalesFuel, our company.
And I'm C. Lee Smith, the President and CEO of SalesFuel, our company.
That's right. So today's guest is Gregory Silva. Hi, Greg. Thanks for coming to our microphones.
Hi, Audrey and Lee. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're glad you're here. You are the Director of Operations for 3 drug and alcohol treatment centers in Southern California, Living Longer Recovery, Gravity Treatment Centers, and the new Spirit Treatment Center in, can I say SoCal? So I sound really hip and cool.
Where are you guys coming from?
I'm in Dallas.
I'm in Columbus, nowhere near California, but we'll head out there this winter. It'll be fine.
Greg, you began your career in marketing, which is what I do. But after your best friend passed away from an overdose back in 2012, you did a huge switch and you want to help others suffering from addiction, which is why you're with us today with a new career in substance abuse treatment. And you're passionate about helping people change their lives for the better. We are really glad that you're here. And so my first question was, because Lee and I were doing our show prep this morning, is what are we talking about right now? Are we only talking about drugs and alcohol? Or are we talking about a much wider spectrum of behaviors that qualify as addiction?
Well, we treat individuals that suffer from drugs and alcohol, but there are tons of other addictions. I mean, there is sex addiction. We know there's people are addicted to social media. There's all kinds of addictions. There's people are addicted to exercise. There's eating disorders. There's things like that. I only deal with drugs and alcohol rehabilitation, but there is help for all of those. And we can talk about resources for anyone who's suffering from some kind of addiction. Hopefully we'll get there.
How can a manager tell if they've for sure in their mind that they've got an employee or a coworker then that is suffering or is dealing with some sort of addiction?
Well, there's lots of signs. You just have to know how to look for them. That kind of takes me back to how I got into this field. My best friend was he house sat for me, and I was doing a lot of work in Europe. I was spending a lot of time in France, and he would house sit for me. And he had told me that he was ordering Xanax off the internet and drinking. And I mean, I knew it was a problem, but I didn't really know how badly of a problem it was. And I tried to get him help, but I didn't really know how to go about it. And he ended up committing suicide in my garage, and I found that it was horrible. And I had so much guilt, and I didn't know what to do, and I wished I would have known more. And as fate would have it, I ended up leaving that position and taking a position with the treatment center in their marketing department. And all the lights went on, the bulbs went on over my head. It's like, wait a minute, if I would have known some of this stuff before, I could have hopefully saved my friend and other people. So I've made it my mission. I've went from the marketing department to actually running 3 treatment centers. And my goal is to help people recognize when either they or their loved ones need treatment and what questions to ask, because that's the hard part right there, and how to recognize when their behavior has changed, and you just know something's wrong. How do you breach that subject? How do you make someone understand that they need help? And anyway, that's kind of where we're at now.
The questions to ask specifically, and is that a function of HR that you should have them ask the questions, or as a manager should I be asking?
Well, there's a lot of companies that drug test. They work with machinery or truck driving or those kinds of things, and they require regular testing, and a lot of them will fail. Not a lot, but a good percentage will fail. the drug test. And that's obviously a indication right there is when there's a failed drug test. And what is your policy with HR? You obviously, most companies have a policy how they deal with drugs and alcohol. Another way is, people are either late to work, or they don't show up, or they don't call in. And that may be a new pattern that you didn't see before. Maybe somebody's worked for you for 10, 15 years, and all of a sudden they're calling in sick, and they come in late, or they leave early, or they don't, their moods have changed, their way they are conducting their business for you has changed. So those are all signs. And we just, coworkers notice it usually first. And, they don't want to snitch, but, if people have concerns about someone who is suffering from drugs or alcohol, or you just can tell there's a change, it's smart to go to HR and talk to them, and then HR will do it, without the rest of the company finding out. And that's kind of how it usually goes. I usually get calls from HR directors who ask me, what do I do? What's the next step? And I help them out, trying to get their people into treatment.
You mentioned then if someone has, a failed drug test, they usually get fired and that sort of thing. Is that still true though, given the labor shortage that we're dealing with, or, some concerns that people may have about the ADA and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I like that you brought that up. I mean, for years, I've tried to talk to companies and businesses about second chances with drugs and alcohol. Sending someone through treatment could be a lot more physically responsible than trying to recruit and hire and train a new employee. So if you have someone who could go through a 30-day treatment and get clean and sober and set up on the path to stay clean and sober, that's much less expensive than the other way, letting them go. And if you have an employee that's been a really good employee for years, it just makes sense to do that.
To put that into context, PwC 2017 CEO survey, that employers spend an average of $4,129 per job in the United States to hire a new person. So that doesn't even count then the onboarding expense, the time to actually ramp them up and get them up to full speed and everything like that, because now you're talking months. So that is that's just a hiring expense. So yeah, if you do the math there, it's like instead of, of course it's the compassionate thing. Yeah, it's there's the compassionate thing, and being empathetic, super, there's that. But it's like if you're just looking at dollars and cents, it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of your podcast, but I was listening to one of your past guests, Hannah Williams, talking about empathy in the workplace. And I mean, this really ties right into that, because this is not just someone with a drinking or a drug problem. This is a disease, and you would no sooner fire someone with cancer who's getting cancer treatments or needed cancer treatments than someone who has the disease of addiction. So if we think of it in those terms, we can actually help someone get their life back together and set them on the right path, and in the meantime save the company a lot of headache and a lot of money.
This is a really awful question, and I mentioned it to Lee earlier, but there are some people that know that if you march into HR and say, I'm an alcoholic, because you think you're about to get fired, you're gaming the system, and you're not really an alcoholic, but now you're a protected employee. What is your advice to managers and HR professionals in a case like that? How can you be sure? I mean, obviously, if you're going to send them off to a 30-day program and they balk, then but that does happen, correct? People try it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make people
aware. Yeah, it happens all the time. People accidentally fall downstairs too, so that they can continue or game the system. So, I mean, it happens. I mean, there are going to be people that do that, but I think the majority of people that will come to HR and say, I have a real problem, You know, that's,
Yeah.
that's going to be, what you hear is what you're going to get. But another thing is a lot of people won't come to HR. HR is going to go to them because there's an issue. There's either a failed drug test, like I said, or performance issues, or tardiness, or theft, or whatever things happen when someone has that addiction. And that's usually how it happens. They'll then admit to it when they, we talk about rock bottom. It's such a cliche term, but it's true. You kind of have to get these people to hit their rock bottom. And if they're faced with termination from a job that they've had for a long time, they're losing their health benefits, they're losing everything. They might lose their house and their family and all of those things if they lose that important job. So usually their rock bottom is, okay, I'll go to treatment rather than face all of these consequences. And that's what we also need to teach out there in society and in business, is the sooner we can catch this, the better for everyone. So, just hopefully keep your eyes open and really address the problem when you see it.
What about when the employee is in denial?
Well, you can only be in denial so much. If the person is in denial and they are going to continue the behaviors that have brought them to the attention of HR, they're going to lose their job. So it just comes down to, do you want to keep your job, and do you want to try to get healthy or not? Get honest. Honestly, I say this all the time. I'm pretty persuasive. I can talk until I'm blue in the face, and I can talk almost anybody into anything, but I can't talk people into coming to treatment. Drugs like fentanyl and heroin are way more persuasive than I am. So someone has to want to get help, and usually they want to get help because their life is about to go down the drain, not just health wise, but their wife and kids and husband and job. All of those things are on a precipice, and you need to address it. And that's when they come to me and say, Greg, I need to get into treatment right now. I mean, if I walk up to someone on the street who's using and they don't have many consequences from it, they're like, why do I need to come in? And, but if I talk to someone whose husband has just told her, hey, honey, you got to quit drinking, or we're getting a divorce, or, whatever, I'll call the cops the next time you take our car. Those kinds of things will get someone to wake up and go, okay, I need to do this.
For managers, you say tough love works. So we talked about having empathy, but you're also saying tough love. If you were training me as a manager, how do I marry those two things together? And is it the way that I'm speaking to them and how I'm conveying the message?
It's a little bit. It's a little bit of everything. When we can train ourselves to realize that this is a disease and not just, a dirty drug addict, that helps. Another thing that helps is realizing that people who take drugs and alcohol, people who are addicts, usually have a co-occurring mental health disorder. So there's some serious trauma in the background. There is some, abuse, you name it. There is some kind of something that causes them to want to quiet their mind, and they pick a drug or an alcohol that helps them cope. And it may work for a while, it may work for a couple of years, but eventually that is going to be worse than the original trauma that they had and lead them down. So treatment really does consist of a mental health and a addiction specialist working in tandem to, get people back on their feet. And that's what people, I think HR people and people in those positions need to understand, that this isn't just someone who wants to have fun and get high. This is someone who's trying to take it upon themselves to find a substance that helps them instead of going the right way. Sometimes doctors misdiagnose, or they're not able to see the right specialists or things like that. And that's what leads people usually to, become addicted.
Would you say they're trying to self-medicate?
Exactly.
Yeah. If someone's got a drinking problem, are there other addictions though that the managers or friends need to be on the lookout for as well, that coexist with that?
Well, I mean, a lot of addicts will use different substances, but besides alcohol, there's a lot of issues with prescription drugs. There's people who take hydrocodone or some kind of prescribed opiates. Those people usually will eventually not be able to find those opiates. The doctors quit prescribing and they can't steal them out of their parents' home anymore, or vice versa. So they start using heroin, and heroin you can get on the street, or they'll start using fentanyl, which is super deadly. So, people snort a lot of meth is making a comeback, which is horrible. Cocaine in some places, depending the part of the country you're in. So it's not always just obviously alcohol. It could be a bunch of different things, and people could be like drinking at night and then taking some kind of upper in the morning so that they can make it to work and try to be semi-alert. So it could be quite a few things. And like I said, many companies do drug tests. So your analysis will show up to 10 or 12 different substances that could be in the system.
So you talk about, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, which one are you seeing more of lately? And when it comes to the drugs?
Well, we get patients from all over the country, and it kind of just depends. The younger crowd, the under 30 crowd, 18 to 25, 28, they do a lot of fentanyl. It's really cheap. It's on the streets, and it's so deadly. You could be taking a certain amount, and you get a new batch, which is much stronger. You have no idea. You do that, and you're dead. So that's a really bad one. We see a lot of middle-aged men and women who are drinking a lot more during the pandemic. Women are drinking 5 times more than usual in the last couple of years. So we see a lot of alcohol abuse among busy professionals, and we get them in here. One of our treatment centers is in Encino, California, is kind of geared towards professionals who need help. We help them stay connected on the computer to their works, so they don't lose their job. We can help them, communicate to the outside world if they need to, and have a cell phone or a work phone if they need to take a couple of hours during the day to fit in between their treatment to make sure that their outside life doesn't fall apart. They need to check in with their kids, their wife, those kinds of things. So we can adjust treatment to fit executive types, which we often do. Sports figures that we treat, pilots are a big one, flight attendants, those kinds of things. So we try to keep them able to function and not be cut off from the whole world, but within reason.
Greg, I would be
my question.
Your turn, Audrey.
I was saying that was going to be my question. Is there? I've never been through a program, but that's a great example of some of the new model of treatment programs. Yeah. Are there like 15-day programs, or is it 30, 60, 90? Like, what are some of the other models that EAP programs and HR
studies show that the longer you can stay in some type of treatment, the better the odds that you will stay sober. What we do is the initial portion. So we'll do it at our facilities. We do detox and residential treatment, where you actually come here, detox off the medication. You are strictly monitored by a doctor and nurses that make sure you have a smooth and not too difficult detox period. It can be dangerous sometimes. If someone's been drinking for a very long time, they can have seizures if they stop immediately. So there's meds to help them through that. And then after about 5 to 7 days of detoxing, they go into a very intensive program where they're doing a lot of therapy and groups and things like that. And that's all residential. They actually stay with us, and we have facilities where they stay. After 30 to 45 days, we recommend that they go to some kind of outside treatment near their home, where they can have 3 to 5 days a week where they're going to meetings and they're getting tested and still going to therapies. And then after that, it can drop down where you're only going once a week, just getting checked, a checkup and making sure you're on track. That could go up to even a year or over a year.
Wow.
But the most important part is the first 30 days to 45 days, and that's what we do.
Got it.
So if you are listening to this show or watching this show and you are struggling with an addiction, an eating disorder, anything like that, Greg, what advice would you give that person then to reaching out, seeking help right now?
Well, 30 days goes by pretty fast, and it's not what most people think. It's not jail. It's not lockup. It's a very great atmosphere where you're surrounded by peers who are going through the same thing as you, and you're surrounded by professionals who know exactly what you need, and they'll help you get through it. I would say just jump in with both feet, with an open mind, and reach out to someone who can help you. And I have some phone numbers and names that I can give for people around the country. Like I said, I get people that fly into my facilities every day. I have a couple coming in today that I will pick up at the airport. I'll be the face that they see when they get there, and we have a very comfortable van that we pick everyone up with their luggage, bring them into treatment. They're admitted, and we get right down to it. And it's safe, and it's turns out people make lifelong friends when they're here, and they continue relationships once they leave here to support each other.
Sure. We've got about a minute left. So you've got 3 different websites. Give us those, and then the phone number that you would want.
I'm going to give you one website, because you can reach me through there, and that way you don't have to write a million things down. But and I'll give you a phone number for me as well. You can reach out and talk to a professional anytime. It's an 800 number. The number is 833-244-5900. And again, 833-244-5900. And then you can go to our a website, which is www.gravitytreatmentcenters.com. And that's a plural of treatment centers. So gravitytreatmentcenters.com. That's a website that will show you a bit about what our facility is like, and talk about some of the therapies, and introduce you to some of the employees that work here. Many of the employees that work here have beaten addiction. They've been in treatment before, so they completely understand. And then if you don't have, if you don't have insurance, or you have a different kind of addiction, you can call the national helpline. It's SAMHSA, and it's 800-662-4357. And if you have like a Medi-Cal or a Medicare type policy, they can help you a lot as well. And they're very helpful.
That's great information. I thank you so much for the managers listening. Great advice for how to handle these things correctly. And for anybody who needs help, phone numbers and websites to go to. Greg, this has been great.
Thank you so much. I can't believe 20 minutes went by this fast.
It's amazing how fast it goes.